Hello and welcome to Angel's Costumes Behind the Seams. I'm Jeremy Angel.
I'm Jonathan Littman.
And I'm Richard Green. Today we're going to be introducing my talk to Jill Taylor. We go back a long, long way. I'm delighted to say she's currently in the building working on a production. Another ex-BBC employee.
Jill's always one of the designers I enjoy when she comes in, because the preparation that she does and the sort of ways she gears herself up, it's great to watch the research and everything. I mean, Military Wives was the perfect example of that for me with Jill.
Yes.
Yeah, she's got great energy.
Yes.
And she's lucky in that she's got a great team that work with her, and that creates a shorthand which enables her to get straight into the essence of what the project's all about. And I think that the work that she's accomplished over the years with Sliding Doors and Johnny English and Full Monty, they're key British films which have all been made with technicians and creatives who would have met her and worked alongside her during that time at the BBC. And the world that subsequently fed into is the industry that we have today.
And just talking of the teams, just to get some clarity before the interview starts, Richard, she refers to Bo quite a lot. Who is Bo?
Bo is Charlotte Sewell. It's a nickname that we have basically because I think we once saw a picture of her dressed as a fancy dress outfit as Bo Peep, and it stuck. She probably won't thank us for making that public, but there we go. And of course, yeah, you're quite right. I mean, Charlotte is an important part of Jill's team, and Jill acknowledges that in our talk.
I think at some point down the line, we need to have a chat with Charlotte, because in addition to her career as a really great costume assistant and supervisor, she's making great inroads into the setup of Bectu and the re-establishing the union, the costume designer stroke supervisor union, which is becoming very important, especially at this point in time.
No, definitely.
Bectu Bo. In fact, I think we've set it up. There's the two Charlottes. There's Charlotte Finley and Charlotte Sewell, who sort of both headed up. And I think we are going to be chatting to them, because you're right, Jonathan. It's an extraordinarily important thing, and I know that they've been absolutely frantic in this. These last couple of months with all this unusual and strange circumstances. So yes, I think it's going to be an interesting talk with those two.
I know we don't cover it on the interview, but I wanted to ask you, Richard, for this one with Jill. Military Wives, how did the research for Military with Jill work? Was a lot of it passed on to the military department? Was there an advisor, or had Jill done the research? I mean, I know she'd done the research. Was she doing most of it herself, or was she happy to use other input?
No, as always, it's kind of a combination. There was a military advisor that the production company employed. Jill, of course, did her research and went and spoke to the wives, and of course, Tom and our uniform department had a lot of input into it as well. So as always, the most successful things are the ones where there's some sort of cooperation and some consensus. Traditionally, I hate the time when the guy who happens to be repairing the air conditioning unit in a studio sidles up to the director and goes, "Well, I was in this mob 15 years ago. And, we didn't wear that." And invariably, he's wrong, or he or she's wrong, because memory plays funny tricks, and we've done our research and we've looked at our dress regulations and things. But of course, as soon as somebody says there's something wrong with the uniform, it's like panic stations. And everybody's rushing around trying to establish whether it's correct or not. The fact that for years and years and years it's been essential to get these things as correct as possible, but now clearance has started to take over such an important part of filming, getting permission to actually use anything, depict anything on screen.
We live in very litigious times, so
we do indeed
need to protect themselves, and if it's not absolutely vital for the narrative in terms of the degree of accuracy, then it's far better that they've got something that is a semblance of it, or the storyline is such that the detail is not absolutely required. But in order for that to take place, Jill still needs to know what the detail is.
Yeah.
So it would be her responsibility to do all the research, for then to make the decision along with the producer and director as to what direction to go in terms of the degree of accuracy.
Well, that's true, but it goes mightily against the grain, having spent all of my career trying to get everything, as correct as we possibly can, and spending money buying the right badges and replicating things and talking to, the American Marine unit at the embassy or the Russian military attaché at the embassy, which Tim and I did at one point to get things correct. Now when everything has to be slightly off or not 100% because of clearance, it's slightly galling. I remember that time, I don't know if you do, Jonathan, but we were doing a contemporary production, and they wanted a motorcycle courier's tabard, and we spoke to whichever courier company we used down in Shaftesbury Avenue, and they agreed to lend us one. I think must have been quite a new thing when you had names on these things. And it was only when I asked the designer what the storyline was, it turned out that this courier was actually going around people's houses and attacking women. So we had to point out fairly quickly that possibly in this case they couldn't use a real courier company tabard because they might have been a little bit upset.
We hope you've been enjoying these conversations. We definitely have, and we've been enjoying getting any feedback. If you have any questions or requests, please email them to podcast@angels.co.uk, or you can visit our website, which is www.angelsbehindtheseams.com, or you can find us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram /Costume Podcast. And here's Richard's conversation with Jill Taylor.
Hello, this is Richard Green from Angels Costumes. Today I'm delighted to be talking to Miss Jill Taylor, costume designer. Jill, hello.
Hello, Richard. I'm loving the myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. It's a myth.
Oh, finally. I have to say to everybody, I'm delighted we finally managed to do this, because we tried to set it up about a month ago, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I just should tell everybody I'm a complete dullard with technology. So, but I got, stranded with no computer in Cumbria and discovered.
Yes.
So anyway, here we are. We've done it. We're here.
So basically, we structure these chats, and the intention is both to entertain, obviously, but to give people an insight into the world of costume, and perhaps people who are thinking about coming into the business, how they might best do that and what they should be looking to do. So there's 5 sort of questions that we'll riff around, and the first one is a very, very simple one, which is kind of like, how did you get into the business, Jill?
Oh my God. Okay. All right. How much time do we have? So in a nutshell,
You have all the time in the world.
I used to sit with my grandmother on Saturday afternoons. She used to look after me on Saturday afternoons. And we always used to watch the Saturday matinees that were playing, like, all the old Warner Brothers movies, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford. And I, from about the age of 9 or 10, used to think, oh, I'd love to be able to do the clothes for people like this.
Really, as early as that, you were kind of...
Oh yeah, no, it was very early,
Brilliant.
very early. And I thought, what a cool job. And I always loved clothes as a child. I don't want to sound like a Monty Python sketch, but my parents had divorced and there was no money. It was all.
You were lucky. We lived in a box in the middle of the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were going down that road literally, and so I used to think, how could I do this? I'd love to do this as a job. I just thought it was very cool, and I still love to this day old black and white movies. And
yeah, me too.
in conjunction with that, my father, who was living in Leeds at the time, had managed to talk himself into a job of being the first wardrobe master for Yorkshire Television. It was the period where all the regionals were just starting up with their own TV stations.
Right.
And so being the wheeler dealer, twister stealer that my father was, he'd managed to talk himself into this job, knowing nothing about clothes at all, really, except the fact that he loved clothes as well. So in between Saturday matinees with my grandmother and Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, and being allowed to go and see my father in Leeds, where he was living this life, which was completely unknown to me. He was doing things like some of the older members of our audience will remember probably Hadley with Jerry Harper and all those old 60s TV shows.
Yes, sadly.
Yeah, I was exposed to all of that from the age of 10, and it just sort of fueled my imagination that maybe there was a possibility I could go in and do that sort of stuff. Now, when I told them at school, when you have the careers talk at 12 or 13, however old you are, and they looked horrified, this Geordie girl saying, I want to go into the film business. And they just said to me, well, you have to go and do shorthand and typing. And so all the things I loved to do, I wasn't allowed to do at school. And so I left school with no qualifications, arguing with my mother, who decided she wanted me to go to Barclays Bank. Anyway, however many years later, here I am by some form of magic.
This is a recurrent theme that, careers offices or officers,
Oh,
and I'm not sure they even exist in schools anymore, but
don't get me started.
they just couldn't kind of get out of those getting people along those established grooves, could they? Secretary, go into banking, go into insurance.
Yeah, and that was it, because that was deemed, particularly in Newcastle upon Tyne in the late 60s,
Yeah.
when I was, however old I was, they were, that's what they did. That was where you were guided to go, and I was having none of it. I mean, whatever else
Yeah.
I was, and I was this shy, timid little thing, but I
Okay, hang on. I just want to pause there for a minute while I try and reassess.
I know.
reassess you.
If you'd known me at 10, I wouldn't say boo to a goose. Except, I obviously I knew very strongly what I didn't want to do. And I knew I didn't want to go into Barclays Bank.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go into an office. And I did not want to go and be a...
So how did you avoid not doing that then, Jill? Come on, what did you do? Because I know that...
I threw a pint of milk over my mother, which is terrible, in an argument. Because
that would have helped.
She had me lined up for an interview with the local Barclays Bank. And I just said, I'm not going. So basically what happened was I dug my heels in. I'd given up at school because they wouldn't let me do art. They wouldn't let me do history, all the things I was interested in. Yeah, because of the curriculum. I haven't a good word to say about careers advisors, and I really haven't a good word to say about schools either. So we should just quickly, get.
Well, it's strange because I was talking to Amy Roberts, and she said the only things she was good at were history, English, and art.
Well.
And she went to art school, but she was encouraged to actually do that, whereas you seem to have been actively discouraged in doing that.
Oh, I was discouraged, and my mother and what I used to do. As I said earlier, my parents were divorced. I had a stepmother who was also. My dad had got into Yorkshire Television, but my stepmother had really gone to art school, and she was very clever, and she used to draw, and I used to copy her drawings. And so I just gave up at school. So I used to sit and draw in the back of my maths class.
Right.
I left school with no qualifications. I mean, I left school with nothing. And I did everything at night school when I left. And I just wanted to go to art school. And so my mother, again, was livid about this. And I remember her saying to me, I see nothing here that you can make a career out of. That's what she said to me. So but by then I was like, well, I'm not going to swear. You can all just bugger up. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I ended up going to a very, very small art school, which was just starting off, an art course that I was comfortable doing because I hadn't done any art for ages, just my stuff, but nothing at school. And they took me on and I did a 2-year foundation course. And then I still didn't know how to get into the film business. I had no clue. My dad, by this point, had long since left the business. So, I had no clue really. So what they said to me was, you can illustrate fashion very well, Jill. You can draw fashion figures very well. And they said to me at art school, we suggest you go and do a fashion degree. And I thought, okay, it wasn't it. I love clothes, but I was not really interested in fashion per se. I ended up, by hook or by crook, going I went to Northumbria University, actually, but it was the poly then, and they took me on. I was not confident enough at 18 to come to London. I just wasn't ready to come to London at 18. It was too soon.
I'm not sure, actually, having met you, that London was ready for you at 18.
No, you're quite right. I mean, you're quite right. But I just really wasn't ready to come to London. So interestingly, the next best course at the time, they were few and far between, was Newcastle. They had the best course outside of London. So I ended up doing 4 years there. It was a huge shock to me because I didn't even think I'd have to sew. I mean, I'd always sewn a little bit, but not that much. And it certainly wasn't my great interest. So, when they told me first off, in 4 years, you're going to have to produce a collection of clothes, was hilarious. So I ended up on this course, which was what we call a sandwich course. So you were sent out into industry for 2 terms in that time.
Yeah. Almost as sort of like an apprenticeship, really.
Yeah, it was.
In a sense, sort of hands-on experience plus some academic plus some college
you had to do your dissertation and you had to do, and then it was all about coursework. It was all about, and we were timetabled from like 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. So me thinking I'd just turn up to one lecture and the rest of the time would be my own was rubbish. But what I did do, which was incredible for me, was you would finish your timetabled work, and then we all got so proficient at sewing, we were all so quick that, I would just remember, cutting an outfit out when I was lying on the floor around me, and I would have it sewn, and I was in the bar by 8:30. Yeah, wearing the outfit. That's
Hang on, is this still the shy retiring person?
Oh, well, that came later. But I mean, if anybody's listening to this who knows me now, they'll think, what? She was sewing an outfit. I mean, because I'll shy away from sewing at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So I got very good at that. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe I should stick in fashion. But at the time when I graduated, which was, I'll tell everybody, I graduated in 1980, it's a long time ago. The fashion industry was in the doldrums. Yeah. And I thought, I don't know, what am I going to do? I've trained, I've done 4 years, I've got my degree. What am I? So I tried to get jobs in the fashion industry and nothing was happening. In between time, I was like selling petrol, but as a promotions girl. So, you had to don the boiler suit on and the Stetson. Yeah. And, I was selling oil and petrol as a promotion and doing all that kind of stuff, trying to get a job. Mm. And then I just, on a whim, went down to Newcastle Theatre Royal and I said, do you need anybody? And they didn't, because they had it all sewn up with these lovely older ladies.
Yes.
And then I got a call just before Christmas from the manager of the Theatre Royal saying, and it was around the time I was graduating. I just graduated, I think. He said, would you come and see me? So I did. And they said, Barbara Windsor needs somebody to look after her. And she doesn't want any of the ladies that are here, because they were all in their 60s or 70s. Yeah. So that was my first gig one of my first gigs, dressing Barbara Windsor in panto.
Brilliant.
It was hilarious. Yeah, we had a ball.
I was trying to think the first time I met you, and I think it must have been BBC time.
It was. I and pretty early on me joining, actually, because my mum, again, who poo-pooed my career, then came up with an advert that she'd seen in The Guardian. Who said, look, the BBC are advertising for holiday relief costume assistant costume designers. That was it. You had to have a degree. And so I applied and I came down to London and they took me on. And I remember I started May the 10th, 1982, with a 3-month contract. And I'm still here in London.
The reason I'm laughing about the mother thing is because if you've heard any of the others, Jonathan's mother got him a job. My mother found me my two jobs, but both before and after I graduated, she found adverts. Oh. It seems that the trend seems to be that see if your mum can find a job for you, it seems to work.
After she's poo-pooed your suggested career.
No, exactly right. But presumably by this point she'd been touched with the brush of stardom. Barbara Windsor, my daughter's dressing Barbara Windsor in the
and then all the spear carriers at the RSC.
Yeah,
so it was. Yeah, I think she realised that I was no way going to be in Barclays Bank or work in an office for that matter. So that's what happened. I came and it was fantastic for me. It was great. I hit just at the end of that golden TV period, and people were still staff, although I just had a rolling contract, or I came for 3 months, but that's all I thought I'd be there for. But they kept extending my contract, so I was on and off with them.
But you were with Robin Stubbs, I think, the first time I
Yeah, well, we ended up in a bar, didn't we?
Yes. which has kind of established the framework for the next 30, 40 years quite successfully.
It has. And why change? So we started off that way. Why change? So I remember meeting you because Robin was one of my. Well, actually, when you joined the BBC, you had to go into something called the Strand office, which was, you had to cover things like Blue Peter, Jim Will Fix It, Top of the Pops, Tomorrow's World, Top Gear, all of that stuff, which was great.
All the bits that the designers didn't want to touch.
No, nobody wanted to touch those. Yeah. So, you were under the auspices of Velma Buckle. Velma Buckle. And
indeed.
And it was great. It was great training. It was. And then, you got, it was set up the way it was set up. There was an allocations office. And, you were told who you were going to be allocated to.
Yes, I mean, it was sort of gun for hire, wasn't it? You're indentured, and they said, okay, this person needs you, off you go.
Oh, yeah. And you were chopped in, as particularly as contract assistants, which I always was for years, you just chopped and changed. Yeah. You did what you were told, basically.
Which is an incredible grounding, actually, if you think about it. And Robin Stubbs is probably one of the nicest guys you could work with.
Yeah, he was gorgeous. I adored him. and a lot of them were fabulous. A lot of them
Yeah.
weren't, and we're not naming any names, but
Nope.
you know, it was incredible grounding, and I feel very sorry for people now that, you know, that just doesn't exist. You
No,
know,
that's right. And this is again one of the points that we've been making, that the BBC in its heyday was a superb training ground, an absolutely superb training
I
ground.
mean, it's really funny, you know. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, you know, if you lined up a rail incorrectly, you've got wrapped knuckles. And I
Yes.
still to this day, you know, I look at a rail of clothes, and you know, if it's lined up for somebody, and I still put things in order that I was taught.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
bizarre, and it hasn't left you like your BBC, you know, number hasn't
Yes.
left you. You know,
That's
your
right.
staff
Yeah.
number 2461866. There you are, ingrained in my brain.
It's like remembering your nan's co-op membership number, isn't it?
Yes,
Living number, or
exactly.
whatever it was.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You know, people who used to be at the BBC all remember their BBC number. It's crazy. So yeah, but it was fantastic grounding, and you know, you got to work with very good people, and you got to assist some very good people. You would learn a hell of a lot. You knew when to keep your mouth shut and when to open your mouth, and it was, I would, you know, it was a golden time. Actually, looking back on it, it was a golden time.
It was, and I remember being in fittings with designers where they've absolutely crushed their assistants for daring to express an opinion.
Hello, if you opened your mouth at the wrong time, you were, you know, dog meat.
Stand there and hold the pins.
Stand there and hold the pins. I famously with June Hudson, Baby June, lovely Baby June, she won't mind us calling her that. She, I did one of my first projects, actually proper projects at the Beeb, was Dombey and Son with Julian Glover, and we were in Cosprop. We were actually fitting in Cosprop, I remember. You know, we were there, and I fell asleep in the fitting. I fell off the chair.
Oh my God.
And Julian said to me, "Are we boring you?" I just slid off the chair.
That's because you were partying too hard in the bar.
Well, sadly, yes.
I did like that bar. When the BBC, I mean, basically what seemed to happen is the BBC just went, okay, that's it really. We're just kind of not doing it anymore.
Oh, I'd gone by then.
You had gone by then.
No, I'd had enough. Basically what happened was they when the management was gotten rid of, they actually they employed me full time, and then they sacked me because I got pregnant. Anyway, they brought me back. And I thought, and then something called producer choice had come in, where, you know, BBC weren't tied to just using staff, directors, and producers. They could bring outside people in. And what happened was that I was doing, they put me into interviews because a lot of these producers didn't want the older designers. It's a terrible ages thing, but, you know, there we are. And so, you know, I was sent off to interview, and I got a gig with Antonia Bird. Lovely Antonia Bird, director, and it was one of those screen ones that they used to do, which were individual films, one-off films.
Yes, yeah.
And so she took me on, and you know, that was it really. I started doing a lot of those screen ones and screen twos with various other, you know, directors. And but what was happening, because you were staff at the BBC, they gave you increments. They gave you like increments every year. And I'd only been there a year on staff. So I was like actually one of the lowest paid members of the department, I found out. And my wardrobe assistant was earning 3 times as much as me as on a freelance contract. And I just thought, well, I'm not having this. I'm going.
Quite right.
So I did. I went. I said, I'm going. You know, and they said, oh, can we not keep you? I said, well, if you can pay me what, you know, you're paying my wardrobe assistant, I'll stay. But they couldn't. So that was it. I was off. And yeah, I went out into the big wide world. I mean, I had worked actually all the time I was at the Beeb, because I was always on contract. I'd gone and done stuff for Thames. I ended up in Pebble Mill. I'd gone to Yorkshire. I'd gone to, you know, Granada.
Yes, because you weren't tied, were you? It was just
no,
literally,
you weren't tied. It was in between. You know, if you had a 3-month contract, and then they'd either renew it or they'd let you go. So you know, I was doing other stuff in between, some commercials. So I wasn't tied to them. So for me, it wasn't a big deal to say, okay, I'm off. I think some people found it very difficult.
I think some of the institutionalized people found it terrible.
Yeah, because it was a very, very protected environment.
Yeah,
it really was.
It was.
you know. So I didn't have that problem at all.
So learning your craft. I wanted to talk to you about Full Monty, which of course everybody knows. And I promise I won't be too boring about it.
Oh, don't worry.
I want to talk to you about 10th Kingdom as well and various other things. But how tricky was it to get those costumes done, choreographed, and sorted? I mean, I'm just curious. It looks effortless when they do it.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, it was a really tough shoot. I'll make no secret of the fact, and I think they all know it was a tough shoot. And we had so little money. I mean, so
Yeah.
little money. And we prepped it in Sheffield. And I used a lot of Sheffield market, actually, for a lot of the clothes. I found.
Which actually, when you think about it, is exactly right. I mean,
Well, it
these
should have
people,
been, yeah. I mean,
these
those
people
boys.
aren't wealthy; they're unemployed. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
exactly. So, it was perfect,
Yeah.
a £2.50 sweater from Sheffield Market.
Yeah.
Clone Zone made the red leather thongs. And I questioned at the time, red leather, that's going to be really uncomfortable. But no, it had to be a red leather thong. So I got Clone Zone to make them. We had to line Bobby's because there was a little chafing on him. But
This is what I call an interview. This is expose in the truest sense of the word.
Expose in the truest sense. Yeah, Bobby's red leather thong chafed. So we had to line it for him in red silk. I mean, really, when I think back, we had so little money. It was like doing things on the hoof, and we had to do things quite quickly. And anyway, we got it all together, and it came to the stripping scene. And we were all building up to this. And I remember the night before, we'd done the rehearsal scene where the police arrest them, and Tom's pants, if you look at that movie, you can see Tom's pants are actually falling off him. Tom Wilkinson's pants are falling off him because the Velcro had worn off because they'd been rehearsing so much.
Yeah.
So I remember I got all the pants re-Velcroed, and the night before we did the strip, Tom couldn't pull his pants off. And I thought, oh, good Lord, here we go. No, they're going to be standing in front of all these women and nobody's going to be able to pull their pants off. So we got it. I said, no, you got to pull them down and out, Tom. So anyway, he got that, but I was absolutely dreading it. So we got there the next morning. I'd brought a case of champagne because we were all so nervous. They were terrified, but I was nervous.
Yeah.
We were all nervous. So I brought a crate of champagne, and somebody decided to give them whiskey chasers or brandy chasers.
Ooh.
So if you look, we were all drunk. So if you watch that sequence, you look in all those actors' eyes, they are not there. I mean, they were really quite ill. And we did it, and it was incredible. But we had to make an announcement because I had one of everything, and we had to. It was a real audience that went to strip clubs, women that went to strip clubs, and it was terrifying. They were like baying for blood by 7 a.m, and they'd already got rid of the warm-up act, who had been a sort of drag stripper. I don't know what he was, but anyway, he'd been booed off the stage. So we were all, quaking in our boots, and we had to make an announcement. We were going to do this over several times, and that we had one tie. Each guy had one tie. Each guy had one belt. We had one hat, one shirt. It was, and please don't keep souvenirs.
Yeah.
So when these things went into the audience, they were very good actually. Everybody volunteered their piece of costume that they'd acquired to give it back. So it was good, but it was incredible actually. It was incredible. And I remember standing by the side of the wings at the stage, and I was saying to Tessa, who was my assistant, I was saying, oh my God, have the pants come off? And she said, can you not hear that roar, Jill? Because I couldn't look.
Now, talking about assistants, you've worked with Charlotte Sill Bow a lot.
I have, Bow, yes,
Bow.
I have.
Beck to Bow.
Bow, yes.
And the three of us have worked together on a number of things. Two men went to war. Is one that I particularly enjoy with affection.
Oh yeah, we had a lovely time on that. Yeah,
having somebody like Charlotte, presumably, if it didn't work for you, you wouldn't work together with her. But
we're like an old married couple. We're pathetic. It's like she finishes my sentences, and we're always arguing. But she's fantastic, and she works so hard. And for me, that's just a shorthand now, which I don't need to worry about. She knows what I like. She gets on with things. She's great, and I'd frankly be lost without her. I mean, I really would. There was a period of time where we sort of missed, she got offered a job and I wasn't working. And so we got out of sync. But, and I, of course, had other people, but we do have a shorthand, and she works incredibly hard, and I would be lost without her. She's great. So it is important to try and have, I know people have relationships with people, and it is good, because we now work at such a speed, that you haven't got time, sadly, to sort of, help.
No, you're right. If you think back to those BBC prep times,
we haven't done the
forever.
shoes today. Let's have lunch next Tuesday and we'll carry on. But those days are long gone. You meet the actor and you have lunch, and then you might do a bit of shopping, and then you reconvene in a week's time, and then maybe you can get it. Then you reconvene the week after. I mean, I remember, they could, some designers could pull a show if they didn't have all their cast in place 6 weeks before they shot. I mean, hello.
Yeah, that's right. They have everything lined up, everything ready to go, everything that needed making. None of this, we're flying so-and-so in this afternoon, and by the way, they work on Monday. No. I know.
But interestingly, I'm wondering, with this new, this new code of practice that's going to come in, I'm hoping that, people are going to have to rethink that, because, it's gotten silly that, we're flying the actor in that night, and you'll see him in the morning, and by the way, we want him ready on camera at 10. I mean, it's crazy.
I think by default, Jill, it is going to slow things down. It's going to have to slow things down.
I hope. So, and much as none of us want to wear PPE, I mean, looking like something from outer space, but equally, if it does help us in the fact that, we actually get time to think and time to prep properly, then that can only be a good thing.
Because it's certainly true, isn't it, that, prep times and turnaround times have got ridiculously short now.
Well, life's just too short. It's too stressful. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those people that really cares about a project. I want to do my best work if I can. And I don't want to be in that position that will have to do and send it on. That's not what we came into this business for. So, we all want to do a good job. But, you can be pushed and pushed and pushed. Well, actually, many years ago, I was told by somebody who said, Jill, until you stand there at 7:00 in the morning and say, sorry, the costume's not here, I did tell you, then people are going to keep pushing you.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the worst phrase is "it'll do," because it'll do isn't good enough. But you're right.
Many of us,
at one point,
put into that position.
At one point, somebody's going to have to say, actually, you know what? I haven't got this costume. He arrived at midnight. It's now 3:00 in the morning, and there hasn't been time to do it. But still,
even then, people still won't believe you. But until one of us is prepared to have that argument, they're going to carry on pushing.
A tricky question for you, but which is the favourite project that you've worked on? I mean, I know that's a silly thing to say, because presumably there have been some that you loved working on and some that you weren't maybe so keen.
Look, I haven't thought about this really. Look, there's some of them are just delightful to work on, and nobody's ever heard of them or seen them, and others have been horrendous to work on, and they've done quite well. I had a particularly nice time. You mentioned Two Men Went to War. We had a ball on that. Really, we did. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Sliding Doors. I actually loved working on Johnny English. I had great fun on Johnny English. Peter Howard, director, was great fun. He used to listen to what you said. And I really enjoyed The Life and Death of Peter Sellers. I had a great relationship with the director on that. And, he basically just said to me when I got the job, he said, all right, off you go. Call me when you've got something. Just go and do it. And I remember thinking, oh, good Lord, here we go, But it was great in terms of research, and I love research, all of that. So
you're good at research.
I love research. So all of that, but they were lovely to do. They were great fun to do, and we had laughed. I like to laugh, Richard. Life's too short. Life's too short. I do like to laugh. So a lot of projects have all had great things about them. Favorite? Oh, I don't know.
It's an unfair question, really. Probably, I mean, if you've already said this, Jill. If you didn't love the business and love doing what you're doing, you wouldn't be doing it. It's something, it strikes me, that you've known in your heart you want to do since you were 10.
Well, yeah, it is. And I count myself very lucky that I had that passion, because so many kids these days don't know what they want to do. But I count
Mm.
myself very lucky that A, I wanted to do that. I knew what I wanted to do. And B, I got there, by
Yeah.
hook or by crook. I somehow, listen, there's nobody more surprised than me, I can tell you. But here I am, um, from where I started out. So I do count my blessings. And I do, deep down, I look, it's tough. It's a tough job. Let's make no bones about it these days. It's a tough job. But
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and I have fun. I have fun.
So you've come to it in a fairly circuitous way, but if somebody listening to this was thinking, well, God, this sounds like this woman's really kind of driven, and I'd like to be that person, and I'd like to, I don't know, create the next Full Monty striptease act or whatever it is. Red thongs are in my thing. What piece of advice would you actually give them?
Well, I think you've got to have a passion, and I think you've got to have a passion. And I think actually Julian Day said something. I listened to his podcast, and I thought, yeah, Julian, you're right. Perseverance. Even if you think you're not persevering, I was never aware that I was persevering, but I must have been. I never felt like I was persevering, just keeping going, but I've kept going. And so actually it's a good point that, just if you really want to do what you want to do, and like I say, I came to it from a point of being told what I should be doing as opposed to what I wanted to do. So I think if you really have a passion and really love what you're doing and want to do it, you will do it. You'll just keep going. And I think it's a very good thing. Just, head down, keep going, and don't be despondent, because you never know what can happen. You never know what can happen. Don't give up, because you might think you're down and out, and believe you me, I've been there many, many times. But you'll have you'll have good years and bad years. I mean, I've had loads of bad years in my career, where one year I just didn't work, couldn't get arrested.
Remember.
And you think, oh, what am I doing? What's going wrong? But, you just have to keep going. And I think you will be rewarded eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, if your mum can find an advert for a job,
well, yeah,
then that certainly helps.
It did. Different times though, weren't they, Richard? Different times.
Yeah,
and sadly, that they don't happen anymore. I was actually very lucky, and I took advantage of that. I tried to learn as much as possible. I'm still learning. God, you never know anything. I'm everything. I'm still learning. Every job I do, it's a learning curve for me.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think that's the thing as well. Accept that you're just going to be constantly learning. I am very suspicious of people that think they know it all. I don't know it all. I don't know it all at all.
No.
It's a constant learning curve for me, and each project is different.
And I think the other thing about you, and you've said this, is that you bring a sense of humour and a sense of balance to it as well, Jill. It's an important job. There's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people's careers involved, and there's a lot of egos involved.
But I'm not saving lives. I'm not saving lives. And, I remember when the bombs went off was it 2007? The 7/7 bombs? Yeah. And I remember I was fitting near Sayal, and we were doing a Woody Allen film. And we were in Ealing, and we were fitting. And everybody started calling us, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I thought, what's gone on? And it was pretty stressy, that job. It was a bit stressy, that job. And I remember talking to the production designer, and she had a friend that was in charge of dealing with germ warfare if we were ever hit in the Hammersmith area. And we were saying, that's stress. That is stress, dealing with something like that when we're dealing with, oh God, this top doesn't fit. What do we got? Or Woody, what else have you got? Because he didn't like what you presented. So I think you've got to have some perspective on this. And also, I've lost too many people in my life now, to think that look, we all take it seriously. We all want to do a good job, but there's got to be a balance. And there's got to be. And I don't live and breathe costume. I don't. I go and make, build fences and
dry stone walls, I believe.
Walling and concreting.
Yes.
I'm now a master cobbler in terms of laying cobbles in concrete. But that's my other life. But
do you take on commissions? Because this is a load of old cobblers.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got to have a perspective, and I'm the head of department, but equally I want everybody to be able to come and talk to me, because I grew up with designers who they were very aloof, and you couldn't go and talk to them. You couldn't share things. You couldn't ask certain things. Some people. So
Yeah.
I just have that open door. Yeah, talk to me. I want to know everybody. I want to know everybody's problems on my team, and we're all in it together. We are a team making a piece of piece of entertainment. So
And that is important, isn't it?
well, I think it is, and I think you've got to have a sense of humor, and you've got to, and I think I'm, and also I don't have that kind of ego where I'm going to be offended if somebody doesn't like something I've done. I think, all right, well, we'll try and come up with an alternative. And I try not, and I think it starts at the top. If you're really stressy, your whole team's going to be stressy. So I try, not to be that way. It's very.
And the relationship that we have, I mean, you and I have a good relationship.
Richard, I love you.
Oh, well, Jill, I love you too. The costume houses that you work with, I mean, I'm thinking of my week with Marilyn, where we actually found that Laurence Olivier uniform tunic. Do you remember?
Yes, and it was the actual, and it was the copy of the original, wasn't it? It was one of the double or something.
I think it was the doubles. I don't think it was actually his, was it? But yes.
Well,
and then Bo got all upset about putting Eaglet on the wrong way.
Yeah, they did. But, I wasn't there that day, and amazingly, Ken Branagh let them get away with it. And but there was only when I saw rushes, I said, "What on earth was going on with the egg leg? How it was swinging. What were you doing?" But I think they were so, because Ken had a thing about creasing. They were so he was uptight about something creasing on the collar that nobody thought about the egg leg. But I think with angels, what's great about angels for me is you just get surprised all the time. But what I love about angels is you can go in with a brief of what you want, and you find something else, a complete gem, and you think, wow, I hadn't thought of that. That would be great. And so then you're led on to something else within the building. So that's what's great, because you've got so much stock in there. Things can be, you can be more fluid in there, and I think it's it's fantastic. Look, we all know it's hard work, and when I retire, Richard, I'm still going to come and sort it out. But
yes, you have said that, haven't you?
I have.
You're still angling for this retirement
this much
job.
Retirement job, because I do, once I start pulling, I think, well, that's in the wrong thinking place. I'm going to put that in the right area. So, and then suddenly 4 hours has gone by, and I've been doing your filing. You.
Has it ever occurred to you that maybe we do this deliberately just to keep you engaged?
Yeah, it has crossed my mind. I think, well, that's in the wrong period. I'm going to move it now. But no, it's we know it has its challenges. There is so much stock in there. It's hard work, but equally, it can throw up all sorts of gems which you hadn't thought about initially. So I think that particularly angels, that's fantastic.
The other thing I wanted to say is that I have to say how generous you are in terms of your thanks. I'm looking on my wall at the picture of all of those Egyptian ladies with merci
We
Richard.
thought that would cheer you up. We thought
it cheered me up every morning.
A few girls in belly dancing costumes. Let's send it to her. What it was great about that, we made a sign saying "Merci, Richard," and I said to all the girls, we had teams of girls who we dressed up, and all from angels, all the great things that we found and put together, and they looked amazing. And so I just went round, and it really was great on set that day, because it had been a bit stressy with the producer had broken his leg. And
so he's in it.
We got him on crutches. Yeah, he didn't come back. So things had been going wrong with that project, and we didn't have a producer for a while, and so it was getting a bit stressy. And this was a big scene, and we were in Morocco filming, and I just thought, oh, come on, and it lightened the whole day. Everybody wanted to be in on it. Everybody said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, Richard, helped us so much with all of this," and so that's what we did. And then we got
really nice.
We got Gaddafi to do it as well, didn't we?
Yes, you did. Yes, and then there's a picture of you and Bo in there as well.
Yes,
brilliant.
yeah.
And then you did exactly the same thing for the costumiers on Military Wives.
Well,
Again,
that was
the uniform.
Yeah, because we had a
Thank
bit of a
you.
screw up on that, didn't we? Which we won't talk about.
Mm, we
But
won't talk
somebody was
about
so
that. No, we
upset,
won't.
which I was felt for. One of your team was so distraught, and I thought, well, we'll
Mm.
just. And the boys were great. They just said, I said, because they were all in their uniforms with everything on, and I said, come on, guys, I've made these signs. Just hold them for Richard and the team, and they did. Yeah, yeah. It's it lightens. It
Very,
lightens it all, doesn't it?
on the face of it, it sounds like well, it's not a silly thing to do. It's a lovely thing to do, but it sounds like a simple thing to do, but it's brilliant that you thought about it, and it's really nice, and it certainly lightens my morning every time I come
Well,
in.
yeah,
So,
and as it
so
as
thank
it
you.
should, and I think it
Yeah.
is important to acknowledge all the work you do. Well, you do a lot
Mm.
for me, and it's important to acknowledge that. And you welcomed me with open arms always. So yeah,
So listen, thank you very, very much for
oh,
this.
my pleasure.
It's been a long time in the coming. As I say, we were trying to do it while
We were,
you were up in
we were,
Northumberland, but
yeah.
we've got it now. And Natalia, thank you very much for being the sound
Oh,
engineer.
I'll shout at her in a minute. Yes, she's
Jill's actually doing this at somebody
yeah, yeah.
else's computer.
Well, because I'm so old fashioned. My computer wouldn't load Zencaster. So Natalia Georgiadu, there you are. People will.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. A shout out for
Shout out for
Natalia. So
Nat.
that,
Yeah, so I'm here at the
yeah.
computer doing this.
So listen, enjoy your time. You're back down south now.
I
So
am.
well, listen. I hope it won't be too long before I see you again. And thank you for this, Jill. I really, really do
I hope I
appreciate
sounded
your time.
vaguely
And
intelligent.
I've learned things. I knew you were a Newcastle girl, and there are various things that we haven't touched on because, as you say, our relationship's normally built around the pub.
Yeah.
So there are things that what's said in the pub stays in the pub. But
You can take the lass out of Geordieland, but you can't take Geordieland out of the lass.
that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So listen, I wouldn't change you for one bit. You take care.
And you.
So that was Richard's conversation with Jill, and now we all know the answer about what best to line your trunks with if you're stripping. Silk.
A lesson for us all there, I feel.
It's amazing to hear how Jill's changed from when she was a student to where she is now. And at least it definitely comes out of the sort of person she has become and how she used to be. And it's amazing she stood up for herself and knew what she wanted to do and went after it.
And how the world has evolved since then.
Yeah, and she's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun.
The next interview we're releasing is my interview with Anne Mascray. Anne is the first maker we're going to be interviewing, in the sense of that's where she started from. And it's a really interesting conversation and goes across her whole career from start, takes in The Hobbit as well, which was an amazing job for her, and then up to the present day. It's a really good chat that I really enjoyed doing.
Yes, and in fact, I saw that the show that we worked with her last on, or you worked with her last on, Singapore Grip, is actually being aired in Australia fairly soon. Don't know when it's going to be released over here.
It looks great. We hope you enjoyed these chats, and here's a small sample of my conversation with Anne Mascray.
Sometimes I will get inspired first by a piece of fabric rather than sitting with a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and so frequently would design on the stand, as it were, like draped fabrics on the stand, put fabrics together on the stand, and I still do that because it's like, well, that doesn't quite work with that, I need something else to go there. So a lot of those dwarf costumes were put together just by me gathering textures and colours that I like together, and then going, right, the missing thing is this, and we'll have to print something for that.